I have a few questions for you, and I hope you can answer these questions. The first question is, if you were to lose your job today, how many months can you survive? The second question is, how much money can you raise in 5 days or 7 days without borrowing? And the third question is, how many income streams pay you every single month? Now, the reason why I ask these questions is we don't think about these questions when we talk about retirement or when we talk about relocating to Zimbabwe. And these questions are very, very, very important. So time and time you'll find that someone will say, you know what? I will not retire in Zimbabwe because the healthcare system is bad. Now, the issue is not the healthcare system that's bad, that's stopping you from retiring in Zimbabwe. What the issue is cash flow or liquidity. That's what you're suffering from. Not the healthcare problem. No. You see, that right there is a deflection. So if you had money coming in every day from your side hustle, from your business, or from your job, would you not be able to afford the healthcare in Zimbabwe? Of course you would. The problem with us Africans is we glorify these useless assets. I'm calling them useless in the sense that you can have 4 pieces of land, maybe even 50 hectares. The question is, if that land is not making you money, then you have a serious problem. This is why you would find that you'll see someone with a new Toyota Hilux, 2 houses, but they will borrow 4,000. They've got houses, they've got land, they've got cows, but when an emergency hits, they will borrow money. Why? Because they don't have money flowing. Right? You need a system in place where money keeps flowing, whether you're making, $200, $500 a day or so, but the money needs to be flowing. What we find is majority of Africans either have one job or one business. And that in itself is very, very dangerous. And this is why I asked the first question. If you lose your job, what do you do? How many months can you survive without borrowing? A lot of people cannot even go past the first month. And that's a problem. It's a really, really big problem. So when I make these videos and I say, our retirement plan should also include a side hustle, I first look at what is easy to sell in Zimbabwe on the ground. What you'll find is, without a doubt, it is going to be farming. Now, I know you're going to say, well, Mr. Ruwa, everyone can't be a farmer. That's fine. That's fine. And it's true. Not everyone can be a farmer. 100% right. But for you now, if you want to be financially successful, financially free, you have to come up with a way to make money that will keep you afloat. You cannot be in a situation where you're in retirement, your car breaks down, and now you have to start borrowing money. You see, part of the African culture that I find very disturbing is we live our lives, okay? We have our children. We get into retirement age and then we start demanding money from our children. Why? Because yes, we have a house, big house that you are very proud of. I've got a 4-bedroom house. It's even a double story. But now, because you don't have cash flow, that big house is not giving you money, is it? It looks nice and you can brag about it. You can say you have a house in Borrowdale, you have a house in Greendale, you have a house in Hatfield. You can brag about it. But is that house making you money? No. So what we end up doing is we start glorifying these assets which are useless. Yes, they are worth a lot of money, but can you really make money so fast with those assets? The answer is no. Chances are you're going to even leave that massive house to your children. And when you leave that house to your children, they can't even maintain it. They can't even maintain it. So we need to really stop and think about how we need to approach this retirement idea or this idea towards financial freedom. For you to be financially free, yes, have a job. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a job. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur. Have a job, but at the same time, you need a secondary source of income. It can be through rental. It can be through a digital product you're selling. It can be through a side hustle. It could be through maybe a little business on the side that you're doing. Maybe it's a car washing thing. Maybe you're selling chickens on the side. Whatever it is, you need to have what? At least 2 sources of income. On the other hand, if you have a business, let's say you're in Zimbabwe, you're doing chickens, right? You cannot just stick to chickens alone. And this is the mistake I made. That's the mistake I made. Of course, right now I've rectified it. And this is why I'm sharing this information with you guys here. I'm not keeping all these discoveries that I come across to myself, because I want that when you listen to this, at least, what I'm saying can also help you. The mistake I made was I put all my effort into the chickens, right? And when the chickens failed to make money, I was literally stuck, because every month I was bleeding money, every single month. Money for feed, money to buy chicks. Now I have to pay the workers, and the workers are stealing. It's not even working, right? So that business in itself could not really function. And my main goal was for me to have two businesses or two sources of income. I have my main business, and then I also have something that can also make me money on the ground. But it failed. You know why? Because when I came over here, my main business was affected by AI. I had to reinvent myself. I had to start a new business altogether, brand new business from scratch, because I was affected. For about 3-4 months since I came from Zimbabwe, I was struggling. I was stressed. In fact, I'm sure some of you saw my videos where I was talking about my back, where it was I had a very bad back problem. And my plan was to go back to Zimbabwe so fast, but I couldn't even go that fast because I was going through so much, because that one source of income dried up. So if you have a chicken business and that's all you're working on, and let's say there's a heat wave, or what's that disease? There's a disease that affects all the chickens. Newcastle comes through, wipes out all the chickens. Maybe it's 5,000 of them gone. How soon can you recover from that? If that was your only thing, how soon can you recover from that? You'll find that it's very, very difficult. So when we talk about retiring in Zimbabwe, a lot of people have this idea, or a lot of Africans have this idea, that the retirement needs a house, land, and that's it. I got somewhere to live and that's it. You see, that mentality there is very dangerous, because then the question is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? How are you going to survive? There's an emergency. You are there in the rurals, in your sub deal thing. You okay, there's an emergency. You want to have an operation done, or you have some checkups that needs to be done. What do you do? Yes, you're sitting okay. You've got a beautiful house. It looks amazing. Where is your money coming from? So you have to be very careful when you listen to a lot of the people online in the comments who say, "Oh, not everyone can be a farmer." That's fine. Not everyone is good to be an entrepreneur. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But my question is, in retirement, how are you going to make money? Cash flow. You need money coming in, because all your 3 stands, you cannot sell them quickly and make money there and then. You can't. They have to go on the market, and then while they're on the market, basically you're not liquid. I'll tell you one story. There's these 2 guys who building for me. They did a fantastic job, built a chicken run, and I paid them. Do you know what they did? They went and bought cows. And I say to them, are you crazy? Why would you go and buy a cow? Oh, no. That's what my father has always done. I said, listen, you live in the city, right? You live in the city. You're going to buy a cow in the rural areas. That cow, if you mess around, you don't give it the right medication or whatever it is, the vaccinations, it'll die. Or there is a drought, it'll just die and the money is gone. Why don't you put that money together, save money, right? Because right now he's using combis to do his building work. He has to hire a car here and there. I said, listen, when you put your money together, why don't you buy yourself a nice pickup truck? That way, when you do your building jobs, you can charge the clients to carry, I was just about to say fertilizers, the cement, the door frames, the timber, all that kind of stuff. You can charge, because now you have a car, and that is an asset that's making you money. You're more efficient, right? And that car is making you money. Unlike a lot of people who have all these cars for show. You have a car worth 60,000, 80,000, 100,000. It's a car that you can show off when you are drinking with your friends. Yes, but is that an asset? Really? No. Some people have 3 plots, 4 plots, but when an emergency arises, you'll find that person doesn't even have $500, but they have 4 plots. They won't have $500 in their plot, because those 4 plots are not making money. Some people have a massive house, beautiful house worth $500,000, maybe even $1 million, right? Is that house really making you money? No. Yes, you can say I'm a millionaire, and technically speaking, yes, you are a millionaire because your asset costs $1 million, but can you sell that house quickly? Now, sometimes, even here in the diaspora, you hear people say, you know what? I have a house on mortgage, therefore, if as soon as I finish paying, I can sell that house and then retire in Zimbabwe. Like, really? Yes, technically you can do that, but do you see you're getting rid of a house completely in order for you to do something else on the side. So this is where it is very, very important to understand that in Africa, especially even Zimbabweans, we don't have a wealth problem because land is wealth. Cows, wealth. All these houses, wealth, right? Sometimes people even look rich. You see some Africans, they look rich, but without liquidity, without cash flow, you got a problem. We got a problem. So we glorify the wrong things and then we just end there. Everyone is aiming to have a house, and then the house is well kitted out. You even go and buy these things abroad to make sure the house looks very comfortable, amazing, right? But where's the money? So in my opinion, this is me now. In my opinion, you got to be balanced. First of all, you need to have different sources of income. So in my case now, the reason why I'm saying I learned the hard way, I now have 2 sources of income and working on the third one. So my first source of income is my business, my online business. The second source of income is what's happening on the farm with my vegetables, right? The third that I'm working on is going back to the chickens. Right now, I'm on a program. In fact, I'll talk about it when it's done. I don't like talking about things when they're not done. But those are the three sources of income. So if there's a drought and I can't do vegetables, at least I have 2 sources of income. If some disease comes, wipes out all my chickens, at least I've got my vegetables to sell to the market on a regular basis. So this is how we're supposed to be planning. This idea of spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars building a massive dream house. What are you going to do with that dream house? Eventually what will happen is you're going to rent one room, one room in there, 2 rooms. Is that how you really want to live? No. So we have to strategize and come up with ways where we can have sources of income. A lot of us, we are one emergency from poverty. One emergency, even a situation where perhaps someone close passes on in Zimbabwe, you'll find that we'll struggle to go to Zimbabwe to bury our loved ones. We'll struggle. Why? Because we will need to borrow credit card. We don't have money. We need to borrow. And a lot of people say there's nothing wrong with borrowing. I can almost predict what the comments are going to be like. You'll find someone saying there's nothing wrong with borrowing. There is nothing wrong with borrowing if you're borrowing to make more money. That's what rich people do. They borrow and make more money with the money that they've borrowed. But a lot of Africans now, we borrow to look good, to look rich. So you borrow to buy an iPhone. You borrow to buy nice clothes. You borrow to drive a new car. But those things that we're borrowing money, are they really bringing money back in? And these are the sort of things that pull us further and further into poverty. Even in the diaspora, we owe more money than money that's coming in. So you'll find that on average, people are on 10,000, 20,000 debt, 20,000 in debt. And you know that money there, it's not easy to pay it off. It's not easy to pay it off because it has interest, and that interest is serious. You may be paying your credit card at the end of the year, the interest rates go up. Now it's almost like the last year that you were paying, it's almost like you haven't even done much towards that debt. And at that point, the money is already used. So we need to start looking at money in a way that money is supposed to give us what? Freedom. I'm not saying don't buy houses. I'm not saying don't buy land. No, but if you start buying all these lands and those lands are not making you money, what's the point? I remember one day I was giving a lesson to my children because, when it comes to money, it's very rare that we get sound advice, because our generation now, we're coming from a generation where our parents, basically, they were workers, right? They were the working class for the most part. Those that have done well in Africa are those who had parents who were teachers, managers, general managers, policemen and all of that. Those are the kind of jobs where in the 80s were like really high profile jobs. And those people managed to buy houses, right? And those houses, by the way, they were bought on mortgage for the most part anyway, because you might think that they had so much money. No, they were paid over mortgage. But of course, they prioritized that mortgage to make it the biggest thing that they spend their money on. And that's why a lot of black people ended up with houses. So that generation, you'll find that they push their children towards education, and that's it, because that's all they know, and that's how they manage to survive, because education was the key. So it becomes education, education, education. But now we have a country where the jobs are no longer as available as they used to be in the 80s. So then there's two questions now. Are you going to say to people, just sit back and relax? Let's wait until jobs become available. Or are we going to say, hey, adapt and find ways to make money? And right now we have a country that has a deficit of beef, chicken, milk, grains, and so on. Because we don't really, okay, we do import. But the fact that we're importing means we can't produce enough. That's an opening right there. Yes, you may see it as like, nah, I can't be seen farming, because we painted agriculture with a bad name and no one wants to be associated with it. But that's where the money is. So when we say you need a hustle, let's go into farming. Let's start a project. We're saying this because we want to get out of the what? Out of that pigeonhole where you're stuck with no money. You know, it's very sad that for some of us who have daughters, we start charging crazy money when our daughters get married because you want to compensate for your what? For your monies. It's very sad. If you have boys, you'll find that the parents become so controlling to a point where the relationship, your son's relationship with his wife gets affected because the money has to flow back to you. In the meantime, they have to survive as well. Why? Because you don't have systems in place to give you what? To give you money. That's where the problem is. So to avoid banging heads and stressing over, this child is supposed to give me this here, all those things now start coming into play, and it's not a nice thing. So we could try and change this. We could try and change this by at least planning. As a matter of fact, we have an online community called Kumusha Investors. It's a website of like-minded people. And these like-minded people, we're going to be discussing and investing back in Zimbabwe as a community of diasporans. Because what I realized is trying to do things individually, it doesn't really work. As a matter of fact, you lose even more money. Very small things can make you lose so much money, it's unbelievable. Right now, as we speak, the opportunities are there to invest and make money. Very, very soon, we're going to be opening up that platform to projects where we can discuss and see where we can put in our monies and put our structures in place so that we can at least have something on the ground, not only just having land, because even in this video, I'm saying don't just have land, okay? We also need to have some side projects going on, but we need to do it in a professional setup, and this is why Kumusha Investors is there. The link for that is in the video description below, so go ahead and check it out. Anyway, this video is not to try and project me as the enlightened one or I'm better than you or anything. I'm learning as we go. And what I'm learning, I'm sharing on this video, or on at least on my channel. So take this video as me trying to share what I've come across or what I'm learning, and let's have a discussion which is constructive. A lot of you are into finance and some of you run businesses. Let us know how you are doing things. If what I'm saying is wrong, let me know and correct me in the comments box. I'd like to see a healthy debate over in the comments box. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.